There are 195 different breeds of dogs recognized by the American Kennel Club. Of these, 70 different breeds will have their tails stopped and 20 different breeds will have their ears cropped. Recently, there has been much controversy over whether tail docking, ear cropping, and similar surgeries are even beneficial for the animal. So Christians are called to care about this issue because God created the animals and gave humans dominion over them. We need to continue this responsibility and care well for our animals. In Genesis 2:19, now out of the ground the Lord God had formed every beast of the field and every bird of the heavens and brought them to the man to see what he would call them. And whatever the man called every living creature, that was its name. 1 Corinthians 15:38 says, animals receive a body as he, God, has chosen, and to each kind of seed its own body. This is evidence that each characteristic of an animal has a purpose. Who are we to alter the specific details God has chosen for these animals? Job 35:11 says, who teaches us more than he teaches the beasts of the earth and makes us wiser than the birds in the sky. God has enabled humans to learn through animals. We have made many scientific advancements without putting humans in direct harm. So why harm these creatures without necessary surgeries that benefit humans or animals? So there are 5 basic freedoms that should be guaranteed to every animal to live a happy and healthy life. The first is freedom from thirst and hunger. The second is freedom from pain, injury, and disease. The third is freedom from physical and thermal discomfort. Pain and physical discomfort are typically unavoidable after surgeries, but they should not be inflicted upon the animal for no reason. The fourth is freedom from fear and distress. Then finally, the fifth is freedom to express natural behaviors. As you will learn, after many of these surgeries, animals are not able to express their natural behaviors anymore. So first we need to figure out what a cosmetic and a convenient surgery is. A cosmetic surgery is a surgery that is not necessary and has no real benefit for the animal. Typically, these surgeries change the outside appearance of the animal, so this would be equivalent to implants or Botox in humans. A convenient surgery is a procedure that is not justified by veterinary professionals. Many cosmetic surgeries are also classified as convenient surgeries because some veterinarians will not perform them because they do not believe there are benefits. So the first cosmetic surgery we're going to talk about is tail docking, which is the amputation of the tail. It is done on dogs, pigs, sheep, and dairy cattle, but we're just going to look at the dog aspect. Tail docking began in different countries for different reasons. In Anatolia, it began because the owners believed that the tail messed with the dog's sense of smell because they watched the dog place their tail over their nose when they slept, but they wanted their dog to be on high alert for guarding duties at all times. So they went ahead and removed it. In England, the tail was removed to prevent injuries while hunting and to show the working status of the dog since working dogs were not taxed. The next slide is a little graphic. So there are 2 ways to dock the tail. The first is by placing a rubber band over the desired position, and this will completely cut off blood flow to the tail, and after about 3 days, the tail will just fall off on its own. The second option is clamping, which is when you put a clamp over the desired position of the tail and you rip away the rest of the tail. In both these cases, the procedure is done when the dog is about 2 to 5 days old with no anesthesia. It is also believed that the nervous system is not fully developed at this age. However, studies have shown that dogs may actually experience more pain at this age because they have much lower nociceptive thresholds, which alert the dog to pain caused by damage to the body tissue. So tail docking has been continued over the years to prevent injuries, especially in hunting dogs, and to improve the overall hygiene of the dog. But the most popular hunting breeds of dogs, like border collies, cattle dogs, labs, and kelpies, do not have their tail docked. In fact, most dogs that have their tail docked now are kept as indoor pets. These same dogs are typically taken to the groomer for hygiene issues. When the dog's rear side is not properly groomed, it can begin to collect feces, which will lead to maggots and flies. But this can be avoided with proper grooming. The tail also contains scent glands, which aid in visual and olfactory senses, which is the sense of smell. The tail acts as a counterbalance during movement to help with balance and coordination. And finally, the tail is a major communication factor with humans and other dogs. For example, if a dog is wagging its tail more to the left than the right, this can be a sign of stress, so you need to be very cautious when approaching the dog. And other dogs will look for similar signals when approaching. There was even a study done that showed that dogs were more likely to interact with a robot dog that had a long tail as opposed to a robot dog that had a short tail. When we take away the dog's ability to communicate, we're actually increasing the risk of dog fights, in which case the aggressive dog is put down, but in reality, these dogs just couldn't effectively communicate with one another. Another popular cosmetic surgery in dogs is ear cropping, which is the reshaping of the dog's ear by removing the pinna, which is the floppy part of the ear. Infections have been associated with the hanging ear due to decreased airflow into the ear, which traps warmth and moisture, and these are the ideal conditions for yeast and bacterial growth. So the surgery began to prevent injury to hunting dogs and to prevent infections. So the dog is about 9 to 12 weeks old when this procedure is done, so they can be put under general anesthesia, but then the dog will continue to go to checkup appointments for about 4 to 8 weeks after the procedure, so the ears can be taped and stretched into the desired positions. The initial goal of ear cropping was to increase airflow into the ear to prevent infections. However, veterinarians have concluded that there is no evidence that ear cropping actually prevents these infections. Like with humans, some dogs are just more prone to ear infections due to underlying factors such as ear shape. Owners can reduce the risk of infection by consistently cleaning and trimming the hair inside of the ear. The floppy part of the ear is there to protect the eardrum from soil, insects, water, and other traumas. It also helps with communication between dogs and humans. For example, we know that when the ears are pulled back, the dog may be scared or timid, so again, you need to be cautious when approaching. And other dogs will look for similar signals when approaching. Another cosmetic surgery that isn't as common is dew claw removal. The dew claw is the digit on the paw that is used for stability and holding objects. Some dogs have 2 dew claws on one paw, and some have no dew claws at all. It really just depends on the dog. Dew claw removal refers to the surgical procedure of completely removing the digit through an incision in the skin. The procedure can be done when the dog is about 3 to 5 days old, in which a local anesthetic is used, or the surgery can be done when the dog is older, when they can be put under general anesthesia. The dew claw can be removed for many reasons, including the size of the dew claw, to prevent injury, and just depending on the activities of the dog. For example, my family decided to remove my dog's dew claws because they were so large and he was consistently jumping up on our fence, and we were scared that his dew claw would get caught and just rip off. So we went ahead and got it removed. Typically, indoor dogs don't really have a use for their dew claws, but outdoor dogs can use them for climbing, protection, and holding objects. As with any surgery, there can be complications, which can include infections, blood clots, pain, and just the general problems that occur while being under general anesthesia. Another heads up, the next slide is graphic. So a controversial surgery in cats is declawing, which is the amputation of the last bone of every toe. This would be the equivalent of taking the tip off of all of your fingers. Veterinarians began this surgery to protect furniture and owners from being scratched. There are 3 ways to perform this surgery, all of which are done when the cat is 6 months old or older, so the cat can be put under general anesthesia. The first technique is using a scalpel or guillotine clippers to remove the distal phalanx, which is this last bone right here. The second technique is called a tendinectomy, which severs the tendons that control the claw to extend and scratch, so this bottom tendon. And then the third and most modern technique is laser surgery, which cuts through the tissue to vaporize it. What most owners don't understand is that when you take away a cat's defense mechanisms, they can begin to act in other inappropriate ways, such as biting, using the bathroom in the house, and hissing. These behaviors will weaken the bond between the cat and the owner. Or the exact opposite may happen, where the bond only grows stronger because the cat doesn't act out in these ways. It really just depends on the cat. Either way, declawing can be avoided with proper training. Owners should take the time and effort necessary to effectively train their cats. Another warning, the next slide is graphic. So devocalization is not a very common surgery, but it can be done in dogs and cats. The goal of this surgery is to muffle or completely eliminate the bark or meow. So this is the front of the neck on the dog, and the bottom structure is the trachea, and these 2 side structures are the vocal cords, which are completely removed in surgery. There are major health concerns with devocalization. Some examples are the development of stridor, which is noisy breathing, dyspnea, which is difficulty breathing, chronic coughing, stenosis, which are narrow airways, and there could potentially be nerve damage, infection, or aspiration pneumonia, all of which just lead to more noise. So devocalization may be an option for conditions such as laryngeal paralysis or airway obstruction as an attempt to open up the airways for breathing, but nothing is guaranteed. Many owners turn to devocalization for their own convenience, like not wanting to hear their dog bark anymore. Again, the voice is a communication device for animals. With training, you need to teach your dog or cat how to stay quiet. But before this training begins, you need to figure out the root cause of the barking or meowing, which could be something simple like they're guarding their territory, they're anxious, or they're stressed. But if these causes are left untreated, the animal may begin to act in other inappropriate ways as a way of communication after the surgery. What many owners don't know is that there is a possibility of the animal resuming normal barking or meowing within months after the surgery because the scarred vocal tissue can regrow. Overall, many of these procedures are continued out of tradition. We expect a Rottweiler to have a dog tail, so we continue to dock their tail. Because of these traditions, society has not realized that many of these procedures have no benefit for the animal. Many pet owners also don't realize that with proper training and grooming, these procedures can be skipped altogether. In a lot of ways, animals are like kids. If you don't show your kids attention, they're going to act out. And if you don't show your animals attention, they're going to act out. If you don't teach your kids how to behave, they're not going to behave. And if you don't teach your animals how to behave, they're not going to behave. Personally, I do not believe that these surgeries are ethical or beneficial to the animal, but I think they may be necessary in certain situations. I also strongly believe that owners fail to realize that animals do need attention, love, grooming, and training to reinforce good behaviors. However, at the end of the day, the decision is ultimately up to the owner. Some veterinarians will perform these procedures while others will not, since they do not see them as beneficial. But owners need to do their research and become aware of what these surgeries entail.
All right, awesome. Now, unfortunately, we don't have any panelists with us this morning, but that just means that I get to go first asking my questions. So, you mentioned something about the 5 freedoms.
Yes.
Which was, I thought, did a really good job of, if you're talking about an ethical discussion, a lot of times you need a framework of like what's out of bounds, quote unquote, like what's unethical. So that was really good. Where did those 5 freedoms come from? Like I didn't pick up on.
I got it from one of my sources. I don't remember which source though.
I just didn't know if it was like a commonly accepted thing or.
I think it is pretty commonly accepted, especially in like the veterinarian field, but it was on one of the sources I found.
Because I gave you a really good framework to say, like, especially the, I thought the most significant one was inhibiting their natural behavior. Like, I thought the popular understanding of these surgeries is they're not behaving the right way, so you do something to them to keep them from behaving that way. It's like, well, that's not, yeah, okay. So that's a good basis. Let me get mine first. Sorry, I just, well, I'll forget if I don't do it. Second one, okay, so this one is, I may stretch you a little bit for this one. But since we're talking about unethical medical type stuff for animals, I know that some breeds of dogs, dogs are bred for specific purposes. You're aware of that. But I know some breeds of dogs have inherently inherited things that because of their breeding, like they have a hard time breathing, like a lot of those little bulldogs and stuff, they have a lot of nasal problems, but they were bred to have those really short snouts. So what about breeding? Are there some breeding practices where it's like, we got to quit making dogs with these problems, or what would you say about that?
I would say that like breeding needs to continue because different dogs have different purposes, like you said, but I actually intern at a veterinarian clinic, and they do have certain surgeries that they can do with those dogs to open up their airways for breathing. So there are certain procedures that can be done to help those dogs with different things, and I think that those surgeries are helpful, but these are kind of unnecessary. So
it's like the opposite of what your project,
yes,
yeah,
opposite.
Gotcha,
Right.
Okay. And last comment, I think it's pretty interesting that it's almost like some of these parts of these dogs, like they were almost designed to have these features, which you could probably understand the Bible teacher dig. I'm trying to get there, but I loved what you were saying about a lot of it's just our expectations. Personal experience, we have a dog that we've had longer than our children. Like Matilda is a very important part of our family. And yeah, you heard me. And she's half bulldog, or not bulldog, half pit bull. Which was one of the reasons why she was like a 1-year-old puppy in the pound, because like she had already had her surgery. Somebody just left her. Like it was a problem. So anyways, we took her in, and it's funny because she doesn't seem like a lot of people that tell her she's a pit bull, and they don't realize it until they see her like sit and you can see the muscle structure or whatever. But the reason they don't realize it is because she has her floppy ears, And the common misconception may be the wrong word, but the common conception is these pit bulls are going to have the real sharp ears or whatever, like you see in a lot of graphics and illustrations and stuff. But I don't know. Anyways, I like this one. So, question, Logan?
Yeah. So with the 5 freedoms, isn't like pain, injury, and disease, are those natural, like in nature, like they're gonna experience that at some point?
They will experience it at some point. Like it's just gonna happen. But with these surgeries, like physical discomfort.
So it's specifically related to surgeries, not just in general.
Yes.
Okay.
Like those things are just going to happen. But if you neglect a dog, they're more likely to get a disease.
Yeah.
So you need to show them.
So it shouldn't be caused by us.
Yes.
But it can happen.
But it can't happen. Yeah.
Which is that's a great question. That's a really important, any of these ethical issues, intent is a really big part of it, right? Yeah. I thought about that too. It's like I was reading it. I was like, there's a lot of animals that they suffer pain kind of naturally. Mm-hmm. But God help us if we're the ones causing it unnecessarily. So, any other questions? Yeah, Zach?
What is your opinion on like puppy mills? Is that the correct term? I think is it the correct term. I don't know.
Where they like breed a bunch of
Yeah. What is your opinion on that? Is there?
I think you absolutely.
I mean, if they're taking care of the dogs, like I don't really have a problem with it as long as the dog is well taken care of. But if with so many dogs, it is hard to show love and affection. I think they could have like field trips, like kids come in, show the dogs love, play with them, and just like love on them to show that people do care about them. But if they can't have people come in, then they probably need to put them in a loving home.
It's weird, like back in the dark ages of the 1980s and 90s, there was like this really big push to control the animal population just because folks were letting their dogs breed and stuff and not getting them spayed or neutered or anything like that. And all of a sudden you have all these stray dogs and cats all over the place, and which is really messed up to just kind of, because as you said, a lot of these domesticated animals, they really do need help to fend for themselves and so on. So, but yeah, I get what you're saying, like, as long as there's ethical treatment after the puppies are born. Any other questions, thoughts, comments, concerns?
I got one.
Go for it. Who was it?
When you put dogs to sleep, is this kind of related? You know what I'm saying? Like they're in like pain or like when you kill them, basically. But
okay.
Like I mean that's kind of related, but not really.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're like sick or something.
This is kind of weird, but I've actually watched one be put down because, like I said, I interned at a vet clinic. And it was weird because I thought that it would freak me out, but it didn't bother me because I watched that dog be in so much pain and just discomfort and stress that I was like, it's okay. Like I know that they're gonna feel better, they're gonna be better, like it's good. But if it's something that they can get over and can get well, I think that there needs to be treatment. But with some owners, they can't afford the treatment. So I understand why they have to put them down because that just happens. But I think the euthanasia is actually really, it's kind of a peaceful process because they put the dog to sleep first, like under anesthesia, and then they kill the dog. So they're already asleep.
It's tough. Yeah. One more Matilda story. Can I tell one? So she got into some, we had a pool, my pool guy left out a bunch of antifreeze after closing the pool. Yeah, I was not happy with the guy, and Matilda got into some antifreeze, and we had to rush her to the animal hospital and flush her kidneys out on an IV overnight. Mm-hmm. And again, as meaningful as this dog is, I had to go home and have a really important conversation with my wife that if it's my kids, I will go broke saving their life. Yeah. If it's my dog, I'll probably pay an unreasonable amount of money, but there is a line, right? Which I think speaks to, I love any of these animal issues. I got a guy today talking about ethical hunting. Like that's kind of on the other end of this spectrum, right?
Wait, is it presented today?
Yeah. It's not Tyler, it's Caleb. But anyhow, it's like, I love these animal issues because I love how God has given us these animals and it brings up all these really interesting questions about ethics, about treatment, about medical advancement, as you mentioned. I know that wasn't really in the scope of your project, but it's just super interesting. All right, last call. Any questions? Comments? Awesome. Good job, Cindy.
Thank you.
Sorry, Brandon.
Do you have any issue with spaying or neutering?
No. I mean, we spay and neuter our dogs because we don't want little puppies running around, but no. I get why people